thehouse.com. I'm here with some special guests today. I've got Pete Harvieux.
Hi.
I've got Tanner Burch.
Hey.
And Stephan and Guf.
Hey.
Yeah, well, we're here kind of for another edition of the Cricket Podcast. I think this is number 17, maybe? 17 or so? I think that's it.
That's what you want to say?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Number 17. This is number 17. But we want to have these guys in. Pete has been within the industry for a really long time. Skate, snow, everything in between. Tanner is holding his own and growing into a phenomenal person. You've been in-house, Tanner, for how long now?
At the house?
Yeah.
6 years?
6 years.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Long time.
Yep. And then you've been helping Pete out for quite a while
Probably
too, right?
close to 6 years, I think.
Yep.
I think year 2 is when I stepped in with you, and yeah, so about 5-6 years with Pete too.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Pete, you kind of, when I first met you, I think you were working at Phobia downtown on Washington and what, 4th?
First.
First, Washington 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Building's still there. What was your kind of association with the Phobia skate shop, and how did that all come to be?
So, I mean, the story kind of starts at small college in Wisconsin, and I was going to school, a sophomore, and a friend of mine was a sub-rep for Ride Snowboards, and I had a few seasons before realized that the dream that we all have as like young kids on snowboards and skateboards that will be sponsored riders and stuff, and it kind of was something that I recognized that I probably wasn't going to be able to pull. I really love snowboarding and kind of pushing myself, but I was riding Trollhagen with a bunch of guys that were Chad Otterstrom, Mike McGinnity, a bunch of other really talented Walker brothers, and all those guys were just riding at like such a high level. You know, specifically someone like Chad, who I think to this day is like top 10 snowboarder
Still rips.
Yeah.
of all time in my list, and obviously killing it at photos right now and doing great things. But yeah, so within that realization, I talked to my friend who was that sub rep, and I said, "How did you kind of become this sub rep?" And he said, "I was working at a shop."
Yeah.
And so for me, I just took this path. I was like, all right, and I went and got a job at a shop called Al John's,
Okay.
and I was working in the Mall of America.
Woo!
Yeah, a long time ago. That was like '96. So I worked there for a while, and they had given me the opportunity to go to Burnsville and manage they had like, at the time, Al John's had like 8 stores. They were kind of like the Midwest chain mall store. But it was a foot in the door, and through that, I was working in Burnsville. I met this kid, Matt Ford, and he was going to the shop called Phobia up in University Avenue in St. Paul. And he said he was kind of helping out once in a while, and that it was a really rad shop, and that it was cooler than what we were doing, and that I should go check it out. So I started going in there. I met this guy Joe, and it was Joe and Chris's shop at the time, and I was like pretty taken back about how authentic and cool it was, touched like all this culture that say something like Al John's wasn't doing, and I was just like, hey, can I help? And so I just started helping Joe, watching the shop, and we just kind of built this store from a single door. I mean, kind of there's a ton of history and story there, but to like kind of fast forward, we built this single door, 1,500 square foot shop into 3 shops, 3,000 square foot shops in Maplewood and Burnsville suburbs, and then moved eventually to downtown Minneapolis to be right in the middle of downtown Minneapolis street skateboarding with this 5,000 square foot shop, which was like insane at the time, and we were so stoked to be there. And yeah, it kind of, that's kind of how I got my start and how like I got involved with Phobia. Obviously, there's so much to be said about. It was like a 9-year run.
Wow, that's a good
there.
That's a good time. And you said the first one was in St. Paul.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was on 280 and University Avenue on the 16 bus line.
Right.
It was a really cool space. There was that was that storefront cultivated all that other, and it was like it cultivated so many personalities at the time were coming through there. from this like street level layer of like headshots, which eventually became rhyme sayers, to Steve Nesser, Seth McCollum, Emmerich Pratt, Benji Meyer. This whole roots culture that was coming out of Rochester was coming up.
Yeah.
And kind of like we had this thing going, but eventually Roots became a skateboard brand that was kind of a part of Phobia. Rob Cece started this brand called Supernatural Clothing. He's now the Nike SB guy. Like, there's so many people that touched and were a part. Todd Bradroot, who went on to do all kinds of, you know, top 5 skateboard artists of all time, in my opinion, again, on my list. So it's just like so many people, you know, Steve Nesser that went on to become pro, do all these different signature shoes, whatnot, and now Familia skate shop and skate park. So it's just like a lot of what Phobia was in this 1,500 square foot St. Paul, very, you know, anonymous kind of location, like went on to like grow this very organic group of people that went on to do all this stuff. So
well, you know, it's kind of interesting that there's a lot of things that happen like that within the Midwest with skate and snowboard culture. It's like something small starts, like this little seed starts, and then just grows into this huge thing. Like you're saying, like kind of the start of Phobia and like how you started with them. Like there's so many things, even with like Trollhagen as a resort, for instance.
Right.
Like, you know, just like a small little seed got planted a long time ago by including snowboarders, and then there's been generations and generations of people coming out of there.
Yeah.
Which is
well, and like, you know, Trolls has got a long history, just like any ski resort has with snowboarding, which was that it wasn't really accepted in the beginning, and it wasn't something that like people embraced wholeheartedly because, you know, there was always a stigma about snowboarders being, you know, like the punks on the hill, and I mean generally they were compared to, say, you know, speed race group or something, or, you know, but maybe not so much more than like the school bus of kids that got dropped off that weekend were probably raising as much, you know, trouble as any group of snowboarders. But, you know, that was just kind of the era that snowboarding was at. It was very youthful, very punk, very like on edge, and like specifically in the Midwest, where snowboarding was very fueled by skateboard culture, and a lot of the snowboarders were skateboarders first, and snowboarding was this winter activity. We didn't have as many options to skate inside in the winter. You know, people had barn ramps or they had some indoor spots. There's probably Skate Oasis in Minneapolis, but people couldn't necessarily always get there. And so a lot of skateboarders turned to snowboarding in the winter to kind of like fuel that passion, or participate on a board sideways. And, you know, so those resorts were kind of like, whoa. I mean, my buddy Brian Kopish was calling Highland Hills every day asking them to allow snowboarding. And they didn't allow it. Eventually they did. And he was there first day, but like, you know, it wasn't something that like every resort embraced. So Troll, you know, obviously allowed us, you know, they were probably, I don't know in what succession and or timeline. I believe that up in Spirit there, I don't remember if it was like Mount Detroit or Chester Bowl, or I know there was somebody somewhere up in Duluth that was very welcoming originally. I know a bunch of guys were hiking the hills up there. I know a bunch of guys in Minneapolis. John Baugh and his crew had specifically like Edina High School, and there was a lot of like hills that they were riding and building jumps at when resorts weren't allowing snowboarding. So there was a snowboard culture in Minnesota and Minneapolis prior to resorts even allowing it. It was still happening around them, but became something that they could get more people to participate at the resort, make more, you know, sell a ticket, which obviously, you know, played into the bottom line of the resort, and so eventually they had to allow it. But yeah, Troll had a unique culture because, I mean, to this day, I mean, Troll's still situated in the River Valley of St. Croix. And it has this, you know, it's owned by a mom and pop, and their son's in there running it now, and it's just a very unique culture. I mean, they were just on, and you got to meet David and Adam, who's now just elevated his role there. And they're legit people, and they're just people, you know, and it's like, there's just something about it. There's a magic at Troll. I mean, again, you know, Sparky and Sean Troth and all these kids, I can't think of Spike and his brother Phil, and, you know, I met Dale Rayberg and Roan Rogers at Troll when I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
They grew up in, Chautauqua, Wisconsin, and it's like they were coming down, even though they had Bruce Mountain close. It was like, there's just something unique about what Troll did, and has, and like, it's, people often ask like, what is it? And I think it's like, there's just one of those innate things that you can't replicate.
Right.
And that I don't think you could even steal from there. It's like, you just could never steal that out of there, because it's just such a part of like what troll hogging is.
Right.
That
Yeah.
no one could really like put a full fingerprint on.
You know, people try to like emulate it or mimic it and pay people to be at a different resort, try to hire a park crew, not just, they'll never be what Troll is. That's for sure.
And they don't have to be, because that's the thing. It's
You're
like
right.
they shouldn't be focused on what Troll is, because Troll's Troll.
Right.
And these other resorts can be themselves and like do what they, develop their own sense of branding and who they want to be. And
Right.
what does that mean? I mean, a good park, does it, the thing for me that I think gets lost in like Troll's newer, like, when people see Troll hogging, they think of 1870 videos and everything Riley contributed. They think of constant park switch ups and like everything that this really rad group of like, teen and 20 something snowboard dudes that just can do any trick on command every day, all day.
Shred bot over there.
Can do, and they see those videos that are coming out of their human on board videos now, and it's like Troll offers a lot of great terrain outside of the park, and that's still like one of my favorite things about Troll hogging is that beyond like the Troll project with Snowboy Productions or any of these other major events that have gone down there, there's still all this really awesome terrain for a small Midwestern hill to go ride around the resort.
Yep.
And that's the thing that always has me like really excited to be at Troll, because ultimately I'll ride the rope a few times, my feet will burn and I got to get out of there, and so I do enjoy the other runs.
Right.
Lee's run is a really fun run that people probably don't ride. We used to do foundation camps on Lee's when we were hosting foundation camps at Troll, but I don't know, that's it is a unique. Storbakken is like an amazing preseason. Nessie is like a preseason run that they always open right away with. Tommy is like pretty awesome, and Vesterol or Molesterol as I called it back in the day as a teenager, was an awesome preseason run. We always had booters and like side hits on that, and like lots of fun has happened in these. And you can see if you follow some of these kids and you see some of their videos. If you look at Robbie's videos, Feud Crew, you can definitely see he does like what is this the night edit. Those guys are
night shift,
shift,
closing shift or something like that.
Closing shift or night shift edit. Sorry, Robbie. And like if you can see like that group of kids riding around the resort, you can see all this other stuff that's happening there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
So
awesome.
from Phobia to kind of like now what we're talking about, the troll hogging, how do you get from being one of the kind of the guys behind the 3 Phobia shops, helping out, having a big influence to kind of where you are today? Because you stepped out of the skate shop and you've repped a lot of different brands, right? How did you go from being a skate shop employee to walking into your first brand and then kind of like now forming what is IPP?
I'll try to be abbreviated. I'll try to abbreviate it to some end because it's probably long-winded and boring. But I guess at the end of the day, so when I started in the shops, the concept was to be this rep or sub-rep or try to figure out how to work for a snowboard brand, because that's what I decided at, I was 18, 19.
Are you glad you decided that?
I was still trying. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I don't want to summarize this whole interview right now, but to do everything that I've done or been afforded the opportunity to do to this point in life has gone and far surpassed anything I could have imagined for myself at that exact moment in time, as I sat outside of this college, like in, western Wisconsin, sitting, staring at whatever clouds are passing by, like going like, I don't think I belong in college, you know, like, why am I here? This isn't really what I want to do right now.
Right.
Or didn't feel like I had to do it because I didn't do good in high school, and getting to college was a big like step to kind of prove to some other people that weren't me that I could do that.
Right.
And I did fairly well in the short time I was there, but again, it was like I was doing that for somebody else and not myself. But at that age, I understand you don't know what you're gonna do. You don't know what you want to do, and so somehow, that stumbled into my lap, and it, this course has, worked for me.
Right.
And I've been very fortunate to be, sitting here and have an opportunity to share my story at all. One that you may have heard. So I don't. So going back, so I guess what happened was we were, running shop. We had a skateboard brand at the time called Iota Skateboards. I was doing sales repping for that, GMing the store, which meant buying. I was a snow TM. We had, Casanova, Craig Williams, Jeff Christopherson,
Was Tucker on?
Dana Mulpey, Tony Conlon, CJ Marsh, John Makins, and we made a movie, which you can actually find online, called Better Late Than Never.
Solid name.
Well, it was like a 3 to 4 year project, so it took a really long time.
There's a couple of those out there.
Link to that.
And pretty proud of it. It's online. If you can go to Corduroy Lifestyles, you look that up. You can generally find the Vimeo. And
Right. We'll link that below in the
it's
audio
up there.
stuff.
So like all those guys had really sick parts, and we put out this video. But I was doing all that, and Joe, the owner of Phobia, was like, we should be repping. A lot of other shop guys, Emmett Clocker from the U Shelter Supply, Derek Miller from Bad Boys Toys out of Chicago. There's a lot of reps in our region that were like shop guys too. And so Joe suggested that we start repping, and around that time, my friend Travis over at iPath Footwear had been kind of talking to me for a long time about trying to rep iPath and asking different people I'd suggested a lot of different folks, and I guess it had never worked out to that point in time. iPath was relatively new at that time, and so, essentially I got this iPath gig for me and Joe, and we kind of co-repped for a few seasons where we went out and did regional trade shows and drove around the Midwest and went to shops, and we're doing this. Joe had kind of like grown weary of the travel and wasn't really his wheelhouse as much, so I just kind of went on with it on my own. And at about that time, I picked up Rome snowboards because again in 2001, I guess a little caveat here is in 2001 I tried to start the Interior Plane Project, IPP, and I had a factory PO ready, 300 boards on order. We were gonna do it, and that factory went out of business.
Which factory was that?
It was called Epic. It was owned by the Yoshida Group. They did MLY or Molly snowboards.
Molly,
and M3. So
Yep.
we were trying to go into that same factory. I think they were doing Andromeda at the time, which was a Portland-based brand.
Okay.
And I don't know for sure, but that would make sense to me. It could have just been some homies somewhere in a garage too. Ask Daryl Mathis; he would probably have a better idea because he worked for them. So I tried to pull this. So I wanted to do it. So then it didn't work out. And what I figured or felt was like Rome was an upstart brand. My friend Mike Neville called me and said, "Hey, I'm leaving." He was 2 seasons into booking the brand, so it was only in its second booking season.
So Mike Neville was the first Rome rep for the Midwest.
For the entire Midwest.
How about that? That's crazy. I didn't know that. That's great.
Well, and so he hired this guy, Matt Jones, who worked at Casualties board shop in Marquette, Michigan, to do the Michigan, Indiana, Ohio side. Because at that time in the Midwest, currently in the Midwest, most reps do the majority of the whole territory, from Ohio to Missouri to the Dakotas. They generally rep the whole dirt, as we call it in the game. But at that time, we called it the dark and light side. So, for whatever reason, and I'm not really ever sure, but Indiana, Ohio, Michigan was like the dark side. And for, I guess Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, we were the light side. So, I don't know. But at that time, So Neville had told me, and I was like, well, all right. So I threw my name into the hat. I was already repping the entire territory for iPath, so I was already driving all over the Midwest. And I just figured adding a snowboard brand made sense. And they got back to me. They had already hired somebody for, Minnesota and Wisconsin and this side. And they offered me the Michigan, Indiana, Ohio side. So
The dark side.
I was already going there, and I had a lot of good accounts there, and I was like pretty excited about it because it was always kind of fractured, and I was really excited about kind of like making it feel like more one territory because it's the Midwest and why segment it. And so I took the gig, which at the time I didn't really know what that meant, but
Right.
when you're trying to grow a small hard good brand in 2003 or whatever it was, it meant a lot of time on the road and a lot of service and a lot of really getting people up to speed. So I was, there were years in the mid 2000s that I was on the road like 145 days a year.
Ooh.
Which was, like 130 to 145 were like my averages on the road. And that means like days overnight, not in your own bed. So I was grinding.
Wow.
I was grinding. But my territory was 7 hours. The nearest store was 7 hours away.
Dang. Yeah.
But one of those stores happened to be Casualties, and
I like the water bottle, by the way.
and those guys were very supportive of me, and Matt being the rep prior, he wanted to focus on his store, which made a lot of sense. But those guys were really rad, and so like really built a really strong relationship with Marquette and like Casualties shop, and then the other stores downstate as well. Sunrise at the time there was only 3 accounts in the whole like Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. There were 3 stores that carried Rome at the time.
Yep.
And so it was like all the stores were real supportive. Well, Sans one, so the 2 of the stores were real supportive. One was kind of just like more of a like they were just a bigger store and didn't know what was going on. But yeah, so I built a good relationship with those Casualties guys, and one of the store employees at Sunrise in Fenton, Michigan, and between those guys spent a lot of time like letting me crash on couches and post up. My one buddy Stu, S2, he lived outside of Flint, and I mean I pretty much would crash with that dude, a month out of the year.
Right.
And he would just let me crash there. And that really made it possible for me to grow the brand in the territory. He was a great helper, real passionate, plugged me into like what I consider the Trollhagen of Michigan, Mount Holly, which had a great crew of dudes, really fun, super fun resort to ride, about an hour northwest of Detroit. Really awesome resort, super fun, full of awesome people. And very, like I say, a very troll hogging. That's how I relate that resort to, something in our zone. But yeah, I don't know. So that was kind of the move. So I started repping. So from there, I picked up Holden.
Yep.
Outerwear. So been repping that. Still rep that to this day. Neff Headwear. Still rep that to this day. Those are like 2 brands I've been with for almost 15 years.
Wow.
That's a long.
I
was there in the beginning of Ashbury Eyewear. I still rep Ashbury Eyewear. Howell gloves and Howell Supply. What else? I helped John Makins, who was one of our team riders at Phobia, with Remind insoles. So
he's behind Remind insoles. Gosh, those are some of my favorite riding insoles.
They're great.
They are
great product, great team. John's a great dude.
Yeah.
Like, pretty awesome. Been at the forefront of the insole game. There's kind of a lot of people in that space, but was definitely there at the beginning when, they were kind of like branding insoles for skate snow more versus whatever big branded insole brand that just sits at your ski shop. So, yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, I do Gnarly now. Work with those guys. I've worked for DNA, so Alien and Habitat for a long time. Through the transition to Burton from when they were Chris Carter in Burton, which was really weird and hard for me.
Sorry.
It's all good. I got over it. I'm still here. And I've worked with Send Help, which is Todd and Nesser at one point. It's Todd Bradford right now. So I worked with him and those guys for a while. I worked for a couple small footwear brands, Filament, Upstart, Praxis had a short run, but that was my buddy Travis. I worked with him there, kind of this like extension from iPath into that. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of went from that. So in that transition, because I was repping these other brands and I was traveling a lot, there was a point, being a GM for, 3 stores was tough. Retail was getting tougher, it just kind of made sense that I made the full-time transition. It was kind of like this or that. And because I'd gotten that far in that, it felt like that was like a step forward to this thing that I thought I wanted to do when I was like 18, 19.
Right.
To like now fully have the opportunity to do. And
Right.
so yeah, we did that.
Cool. Now, you must have had a lot of really good mentors in your life, kind of like, I can imagine maybe
Sure.
by kind of helping you along, and you're like Joe, for instance, and just kind of like maybe helping guide your path. And I say that because with the amount of influence that you've had with so many people around here. Like there's so many people that are like, Pete has helped me out so much. Like Pete has done this. Like for Tanner's Tanner's one of those guys. And what do you think? Why do you think you have such a big heart to like help those everyone out? Where sometimes like some people can be a little standoffish on trying to help others. And I say that with the background that I'm a huge advocate of have a mentor and be a mentor. And who I guess would be like, who would you say like do you put a lot of energy into to like try to help grow up, and why?
I guess I don't know where it stems from, but I guess one thing that's always resonated with me is like treat people like you want to be treated.
Yeah.
I'm not a very like religious person at all, but I just think that statement means a lot, and like I just try to live life like not trying to be better than anyone else.
Right.
I don't really feel like I'm any better than any other person.
Great.
And so I've been afforded, like I said, I've gotten to this point, which blows my mind, and like all the things I've been afforded is like far surpassed like dreams that I ever conceived for myself younger, and I'm just trying to help other people like live their dreams to the best of my ability.
Right.
It's like I don't know, like I don't see why other people aren't just like down for that. But so anywhere I can help somebody get to that next step, that's what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
And so whether it's a team rider, whether it's a rep homie, whether it's a shop guy, I'm just trying to like, cultivate opportunities. And then if those opportunities happen, then it's really up to other people to like see those opportunities through.
Right.
So like Tanner, it's like Tanner's interested in the snowboard culture.
Yep.
He wants to be more involved with it. Maybe be a rep and do something of that nature.
Right.
Things have evolved in our culture and our industry. So, I was like, get a job at a shop. Tanner started working at the house. He's paying dues on the floor. Hey, come out to this trade show. Help me out. Meet some people from other stores, develop those relationships, get your face out there, spend time talking some shop with some people, and like, try to create those opportunities for yourself. And here I'll give you as much information as I can possibly give you from my point of view, and maybe here's how you should look at it from your point of view. And I'm always just trying, perspective's a big thing in life that I think a lot of people really like close down into their singular version. And today culturally it's that much easier for us to shut other people out of our point of view because we can follow or unfollow or hide.
So true. Well said.
That we become very narrow and only echo. They call it the echo chamber. So we just echo the things we're interested in consistently. And that we're not really willing to listen to people outside of what we already believe or what we already think, at least if not to hear them out, to consider something different than our own point of view. And so in that, it's like, it's a bummer, but I'm trying to consistently engage people to a way that we can see stuff from different points of view, and I'm trying to help these guys learn different perspectives and know that like I can give you information and I can give you my experiences, and like hopefully you can draw something from that, but your perspective, your point of view, and what's happening right now from your angle
Yep.
also is important, and how can you apply some of these lessons learned to your angle, to your side, and then consider somebody else's point of view and conversate with them and grab as much information to really have a very flushed out concept of what it is either you're trying to accomplish, what your dream is, how do you get there. There's just so many different things we're motivated by. So, you know, it's like, I'm not ever trying to blanket, like, I know everything's best.
Right.
You know, I've done it all. Because I haven't, you know, it's like, but I've done a lot.
Yep.
A lot more than I ever imagined I'd do.
Sure.
And so that gives me a unique perspective because I've already surpassed many things I ever imagined just by doing. And again, that really cycles back then to this concept of like, you know, just treat people like you want to be treated, and like keeping it level and not taking yourself too damn seriously, and not pretending like, you know, you're better than somebody because you did a trick somewhere better, or you one up this dude there, or, you know, there's all these different things that play into this thing called an ego that we have that really blinds us from really just being better people.
Right.
Which really being a good person can get you far in life. And that's one thing I've learned is like not being an asshole can allow you a lot of opportunities that a lot of people who are assholes will never get.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to work with that asshole.
Right.
No.
So true. Tanner, how did Pete first get you involved with kind of like with everything? I know you've helped out. You've done a lot of things with IPP. How did that kind of relationship start between you guys?
So thinking back, if I have to really put a pinpoint on when I kind of like met Pete, I think I met Pete at FL. I'm almost positive it was FLP, the FL
The
project.
Forest Lakes Project shop.
Yep, in Forest Lake, Minnesota, and I think it was during a video premiere that like a bunch of friends put it on, and I think that's where I met him, and that's kind of when I was introduced, and I had grown relationships with my friend Jeffy, and Jeffy was flowed Neff stuff through Pete, and kind of Pete helped him up through that way, and he was like, oh well, if you know, and I kind of got to a point where as like a teenager, like late teens, like early 20s, like I snowboarded all the time. That was like that's all I cared about, that's all I wanted to do. And then I kind of got to a point where a lot of people excelled at a super fast rate, and I kind of didn't like get to that same level. And I was like, well, you know, it doesn't mean I don't love it any less, and I just kind of want to figure out how I can make my footprint on snowboarding and how I can keep doing it as long as I can do it. And then that's when Jeff was kind of, you should talk to Pete, see Pete's like starting this brand. I'm gonna be a part of it, like jump on it, see what he, you know, if he's got any like wiggle room for you, whether it's like you bring a board to somebody or whether you go to a show or bring a tent, like anything helps. You should just reach out. So I think I just reached out to, I think it was like on Facebook or something. I was like, hey, if you need any help with your new brand, like I know nothing, but I'm an empty glass dude. Like I'm down to help. And he's like, yeah, whatever. We'll see what I can find. And whether it was like organizing boards in the basement or just, you know, helping ship stuff or events, like I pretty much just whatever I could help in any single way, I was like, I don't care. It doesn't, even if it's not interior, whether it's like through Holden or Ashbury or anything, like I'll do whatever you want. It was pretty, I wouldn't say it was a desperate need, but it was a big urge. I wanted to help and I wanted to be a part of something. And so that's kind of like the go ahead. That was like the first initial meet, I think. So yeah.
And I feel like you have a lot of people kind of like Tanner that you have under your wing. You know, like whether it be some of your team riders too. I know you help one of our team riders, Brandon Kirkland, out pretty much like head to toe with everything. I guess besides boards, right?
You were doing boards with Rome. Was he on Rome when you were doing boards?
Yeah.
So he was. I think he was it was right at the transition because I gave Rome, so like when I started interior, I handed Rome off to my sub rep, which was Rich Winnie.
Great guy, by the way.
He is an amazing dude. And Rich's story is very similar. It's like Rich he was a team rider for me. He had done some seasons Tahoe. He comes from Nubs Knob in northern Michigan, Petoskey, and like there was a shop in town, and the shop was opening. This shop, Latitude 45, which is a bike shop, was opening a secondary store called Ride 45. And I was like, hey, Rich, like he's like 24. I'm like, you're a great snowboarder. You're a great regional rider. You can be a regional rider, but you should get a job at the store. And then we can help each other even more. Right. Because, you know, we can build Rome into the marketplace and make sure we have a solid footing. and you can help rep in Michigan as I was trying to get off the road less, you know, because I had been on the road for such a long time, and I just wanted to try to like share some of that responsibility with somebody and pay them a little bit. So, you know, he got the job and started to kind of like cut his teeth at retail.
Yep.
So that then he could go out to other retailers and kind of know what was going on at retail and, you know, clinic the shops and like teach people about the brand and, you know, set up tents at, on snow demos. And he always was, so Stu, him, and this gal, Haley, always were helping me as my like sub reps, we called it the triple-headed dragons. So, we had a good crew of people that were coming to the trade shows. Haley helped me a ton with Holden. She was amazing, like at out at SIA when that was a thing. She was there, like stomping Holden showings for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like all these, this crew of people were definitely doing that. So Kirkland kind of got on around this transition point.
Got it.
Rich has done a lot with Brandon.
Yeah.
So Rich has very much been his Rome rep, more so than what I was at the time.
Okay.
But Kirkland's a great dude, and now you can see him watch the Instagram at a high Cascade, and you're gonna see Brandon Kirkland daily, pretty much right now. I think it's been pretty consistent.
Just firing too,
because he rips, and like he is like the nicest kid.
Right.
So, and he's a good person, and that just goes to show. It's like, you know, participate, do what you love.
Right.
You know, treat people like you want to be treated. You know, don't think that the stuff you're doing and who you are is better than other people.
Right.
Grind it out, and like, you know, seize opportunities when they're there. And then things will work out. You know, it's like, I don't know, things don't happen overnight. So what have we? So 6-7 years. I'm like, and you've been helping with IPP and helping with a lot of the brands, but like, you know, IPP is a very small brand. And,
it is.
You know, I mean, it's just tiny. So there's not a lot of opportunity, you know, specifically financially for anyone. So it's like, we kind of grind it out together, and there's love and passion, and it exists.
And you gain experience and stuff like that, and we make connections, and that almost, I think, is more valuable than someone handing you a check and going, here, you know. I just think the experience part is amazing, and I think paying you, and like I used to, and I kind of expected, maybe not expectation, I think it was more like instantaneous things were gonna come if you worked hard, but you kind of learn as you pay your dues and you pay hard and you work hard, then it kind of comes later. But definitely with like paying your dues and kind of moving forward, it was having, you know, you're gonna have like an expectation, and sometimes those expectations don't get met instantly. And I think that also comes from a lot of things that we go through nowadays anyways, with instantaneous anything you want essentially. So but like just having that kind of expectation, and you know, kind of compromising with that expectation if it might not meet it, and then just working hard and paying through definitely comes with every aspect of life, whether it's your job or whether it's through your snowboarding or whether it's like anything essentially. So.
Yeah, I recently had lunch with a buddy. We were just kind of talking about like the overall, you know, how's life going, and he said over the last 3 years or so, he's really tried to dedicate fueling his life with basically three things, like fueling something that supports his passions, fueling his life with things that support his soul and like kind of his well-being in that way, and then lastly his bank account. You know, so like you don't always have to have one thing that you do that does all three, but it should do at least one of those. So like passion projects and being involved and having significance is like it's huge. It's sometimes better, you know, really better than getting money to do it.
Well, everyone wants to be comfortable, and we have basic needs, right? So like, what do you define as your basic needs? You know, and there's a big difference between wants and needs. But in our culture, we really blur those lines. And because we live in a capitalist culture, the idea is to like make everybody think that what they want is what they need.
It's marketing.
That's how it works. But that employs everybody pretty much now.
It does.
I mean, we're sitting here, and you know, and that's the exact same thing that you know, snowboarding it's a culture that you participate in. You know, is it a need? You know, like, do you need to go snowboarding every day? You don't need to live, but you know, again, like you just mentioned, you know, to fill your passion cup up
Yeah.
or whatever, you need these exterior activities,
Right.
which then fuels you as a human, which makes you do better,
Right.
work harder for other things, or
Mhm.
whether it's skateboarding,
Yeah.
snowboarding, whatever your thing happens to be, you know, you need to be able to participate in those things, or you know,
Mhm.
as people, we just like we kind of lose it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. You know,
Yeah. Well, no, that's but let's
I'm
get
not trying to go too heavy.
No, that's
Yeah.
all right. So you first started to do, or you plan to create the interior plane project snowboards in 2001, and then you kind of sidestep, did a lateral step into some other things, and now we're at the point where the interior plane project, the IPP. For those of you guys who don't know, Pete owns and runs IPP. So when you hear IPP, that's interior plane project. You've been doing that for 7 years. So there's like another kind of segue from being a rep, and you're still a rep, into being a brand owner, manufacturer, designer, marketer, everything that goes into that. How does
I
that, how
feel
does
like
that-
I've been those things this whole time, because
Okay.
from a shop role,
Yep,
you're inputting on graphic design, so you're kind of art directing.
yep,
You're shipping product, or you're bringing product in, and I'm like breaking down, and we have 3 stores, so it's like we get orders in.
Yep.
So I'm logistics, so I'm like breaking apart this order into 3 different stores, and then like adding it to the computer, and then dropping it off. So I'm handling that whole, I was TM and team management for kind of IOTA and the snowboard team at one point, and then probably Sudo, the skate team, at different moments, just because I was often around. I was generally managing 4 different managers at the stores at some point in time, and trying to juggle those relationships, hiring all the kids at the storefront. So, you know, when it comes into like going into the interior plane project, you know, a lot of these like roles were already roles I was kind of playing.
Got
I
it.
would say like the biggest change in interior for me from what I'd kind of previously been doing, from shop life to rep life, where you're kind of like a regional manager and marketing manager. You're marketing as a rep. I was marketing as a rep as
Mhm.
much as I was selling, and
Right.
would argue that I'm better at that than
Okay.
I was probably even at like selling, not to like specific, but maybe to a broad base of stores.
Right.
At that time, I think I've evolved that and continually evolved that, because everything's evolved, and so it's gotten easier to evolve that for me, because through the natural state of things. But yeah, ultimately, interior, you know, really started in '97
Okay.
while I was at Phobia. Didn't pull the trigger. The catalyst for pulling the trigger the second time was that I was going to be a father.
Okay.
And so in that, in snowboarding around that time, 2010, there were a lot of things happening in terms of design and construction of snowboards that I didn't necessarily believe like benefited on snow participation.
Okay.
And I was selling a lot of that, and it was a compromise for me. And it was
Mhm.
becoming increasingly more difficult
Got it.
for me to compromise those values. And so with my child coming, I was afforded an opportunity to be Ashbury sales manager from the Midwest, so I took that role. So there was a role in which I was going to have a steady check to go along with repping all the other stuff I did, and work with good dudes that I was real passionate about working with a brand that I was like super invested in and really like 100% down for. And so I kind of used that as an opportunity then to allow Rich, because I'd always told Rich that there was going to be a time when I felt like I would probably start. Because when I started at Rome, I even told Josh Reed, the owner, one of the owners,
Him and Sully, right?
Paul and Josh, and
Yep.
you know, Sully is like, those guys are amazing people, and Rome is an awesome snowboard brand,
Yep.
full of really passionate snowboarders that I totally believe 110% in. And I learned so much with those guys, and we all learned, I think, so much together, and made so many crazy memories. And it was a wild and fantastic ride. And I just hold on. I'm like trying to like not go too deep into the memory bank because
Right.
I'm just gonna let some of those lay back there. But a lot of great times. And but you know, again, so one of the things is you know not to be too deep and boring and like nobody cares. But you know, for me as a father, the thing I thought I could kind of like adhere to was that I could have an opportunity to say like, how do you teach morality and like things, and it's like being true to yourself. And so compromising this ability, you know, to work with this great brand who are great, but like selling a lot of stuff to like people. I was just like, I was having some issues with it personally. And so it allowed me to like circumvent those issues and like follow through on something, because there's a big thing in life where a dream's a dream until you like try to follow through on it. And so I had already done Corduroy, which was this concept of doing a regional magazine that supported, you know, like Midwest stories around snow and skate culture, and kind of going beyond just like kind of like our normal what people are saying, but like use visuals and stories and headlines. And we got a lot of great stories out there. Again, you know, I'll give you the blog spot. There's a Corduroy spot. You can look at all the magazines. There's, you know, Danimals interviews, Riley interviews, Durham interviews, John Baugh, who owned Beacon Outerwear.
From Iowa?
No, from Minneapolis.
Was he from here?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, like St. Louis Park, Hopkins area.
Right.
I'm trying to think of who else. You know,
Yeah,
Marie
Chad
Huckle,
was in there too.
who, if you don't know her story, Otterstrom we did. Like, so we had a lot of great interviews in that space, and I had followed through with that and done that just out of pocket, no ads or anything. We were printing hard copies at about 200 an issue. We only did like 4.
I think I have two volumes.
Sure,
or
you
two,
should have
the first
two.
and
The
second
first one was only literally the first one. There was 25 copies.
Maybe I don't. Maybe
So
I have
probably
second
not
and
that
third.
one, but yeah, the second,
Right.
third, and
Yeah.
fourth definitely got like 2 to 250
Right.
in terms of issues. And again, we just handed them out. Usually came out around SIA and like walked
Yeah.
around SIA and handed them out to people. And it was a good way to support like regional riders, regional stories,
Right.
just kind of like talk about, you know, Midwest snowboarding is deep rooted in snowboard culture. And I often feel like, you know, because again, mountain towns are awesome and they're very like, you know, like there's a peak right here and we just drive there and woo, we love powder and like, but like a lot of these cats that have influenced like the visuals of snowboarding, and not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, I've been Midwestern riders at different points in time.
Right.
And, you know, Tyrol Basin, summer half-pipe events.
Summer snow jams.
Ridiculous, you know, like when you think about it in that era and like what they were doing, like this brewer tarp that they would tarp all the snow, do this June half-pipe event.
Right.
Like, what?
Do they still do that?
Like Tyrol, like what an amazing place.
Yeah.
No, they
No.
don't. They do an April event.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was gonna
they've been
say.
trying to push it back, but it's harder and harder to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snow.
Is the earth warmer? I don't know. Yeah, but
Maybe.
at the same time, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, there's so many things. And even now, you know, today, you know, IPP, we make product with Capita Manufacturing. Capita Manufacturing partly is run by Blue Montgomery, who owns Capita. Blue is from Iowa. There's your
Yeah.
Iowa connection.
There it is.
He's an Iowa kid.
Yep.
Moved to Utah, was a pro snowboarder, rode for a bunch of brands. I've just been I have all these magazines with ads on them. I'm shooting them and I send them to him, and he's just like,
Geeking out.
but you know, so like that relationship, you know, like that dude, and like what Capita, you know, what that facility represents as like a zero emissions facility. When we talk about global warming and stuff,
Right.
like it's a very special space, you know.
Yeah.
In the Alps, you know, fully on a closed pneumonia system that's fueled by a river that's right next to it. So it's, you know, it's just really special and amazing. There's a lot of cool brands coming out of there, and obviously Capita is a really awesome snowboard brand as well, fueled by a bunch of rad people that do a lot of great things and are really passionate about snowboarding on a lot of different levels. And you know, it's like, that's really cool. So telling those stories was important, but then it evolved into this like, okay, well, now, you know, can we create this brand and tell stories through the brand.
Right.
And can I show my kid that like you can follow through with your dream, and that sometimes just doing it, win or lose, is more important than winning.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like just doing. So I found after a long time, I found somebody to manufacture boards with. At the time, it was this guy in Canada, Richard, called I5, and it was a cool spot. He had bought some presses of a big factory, and you know, Quebec, Canada. There's a bunch of different factories that have been up there through the years that have made a lot of stuff, and this was like an old Burton factory that had any of these presses, and so we started making them, and we started, you know, creating an interior plane project where we create collections every year. So the idea was about making positive cambered snowboards
Thank you.
that
Thanks for doing that.
that were what we consider premium medium. And premium medium to us is defined by having boards that are poppy, snappy on edge, that also is something that when you ride it for a season, ideally, you know, it breaks in and gets to this perfect spot
Yeah.
Yeah.
where it doesn't come out of the wrapper perfect, and then you ride it for half a season and it's a noodle,
Yeah.
Right.
which is a lot of snowboards right now. And
Right.
I get it, because you want to get a brand new snowboard, you want to stand on it, and you want the shit to be buttery right
Right.
away.
Yep.
But then you're sacrificing a lot of opportunity to be able to ride that 100 days or
Right.
2 seasons where this board's really, and you adjust to it. I mean, obviously, if your board gets softer as you adjust to it, you as a rider,
Well,
you
yes.
adjust to it as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
So that's fine. And if that's how you want to snowboard,
Yeah.
That's your
I'll power-
snowboarding.
I'll
Yeah.
power to
That's you.
I think
for me, medium, I want it to be good at the end of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
I think out of the wrapper, a board should be just a little bit stiffer than you want it to, a little bit more, you know, poppy, a little bit more
Yeah.
rigid, because it's gonna break in. If you get a noodle right away, it's gonna be even worse
Yeah.
at, you know, in the middle and late
Right.
March.
Well, snowboarding's changed a lot. Like, dude, you know, even in a park element. So hey, I don't know how everybody rides, but everybody rides a little bit different. But if you look at like cats in the street, I mean, you see these dudes and they're gapping out to these rails. So you gap out, you need some meat under your feet, so your board
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily fold.
Right.
Yeah. Last thing you want to do is a loop out on.
Not
a
to say that our boards never folded, because I've seen them, but but you know,
Yeah.
it's like it does happen.
Yeah.
Because that's still gapping out to something
Yeah.
with a fulcrum, and you know,
Yeah.
there is some science behind that.
There's
Right.
some consequences behind your gap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of where we sit in this premium medium. To us, that's what premium medium is: sintered base boards,
Yeah.
no extra things that are going to fail on the board, like dyed cuts. You know, triaxle glasses incorporated with full wood cores, which a lot of people have. And you know, we do a little carbon in the nose and tail for that extra ollie and nollie power, again, through the life of the board, and then a little bit extra residual edge hold as well, as we feel that offers not the torsional snap, but actually on edge, just a little extra snap in and out of your turns.
Awesome.
A little more
Yeah.
oomph on there too.
What was that, Tanner?
A little more oomph. Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
a little more popping off the tail and
Yeah.
stuff like that too. And then the premium medium too, it also goes into the price point.
Yep.
Premium medium is also like the price point idea. So not the boards, you know, the Haro goes at 400, the Odessa's
Awesome
420,
price
and then
point.
450 is the Honolulu. So
Yeah.
nothing breaks. I mean, you don't.
So everything's right around 449, 450.
Yeah, I
Yep.
just feel like kind of that's where
That's
a
great.
great snowboard is priced. I mean, we see
Yep.
a lot of great snowboards in the marketplace priced in those price points. And
Right.
for me, it's like, could you add all these extra additives and all this extra stuff, and you can get your boards up to $600-$700? And do those additives really,
Yeah.
when you put them on snow, add
Right.
that same value?
Right.
I don't know. You know, it's like, I guess I've ridden a lot of snowboards because I've been snowboarding since '86. So, and I as a rep would ride a lot of other brands boards.
Right.
So I've always ridden different product, and I've just kind of got to where this is what I think is medium, and that's what it is. If other people think it's not, that's fine. you
That's
know.
their opinion.
And there's plenty
Right.
of options for people to go ride a great snowboard from a lot of different brands.
Right.
But for us, that's kind of our point of view. And then coupled with that is aesthetically, we've never really wanted to be pigeonholed from an aesthetic perspective, because
Right.
I've always thought that was kind of limiting, where every year you kind of your board's got to look a specific way because that's what people expect. It's like, I always put it to your favorite band mentality. So your favorite band plays your favorite album, and the next album they're like, decided they're gonna switch some stuff up.
Mhm.
And how mad do you get, like, because
Pissed.
that was your- So we don't change the sound.
Mhm.
We just change the aesthetic. So when we show up on stage, we look a little different, but we sound the same.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you know,
that
like,
logic.
go ahead.
Oh, I just said I like that logic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every year, IPP, because we understand we're a small brand and we're aesthetics appeal to people at retail,
Yep.
and in the marketplace, and people like to have different visuals on their boards.
Right.
So we like to be able to have different visual on our board year to year. So it always kind of looks, so we never look like maybe the same brand year to year,
Mhm.
but we
Right.
ride the same year
Right.
to year.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you find a Honolulu 54 and you love that snowboard, and then it was 3 years ago, and you buy it, and you've ridden 3 boards since then, and now you buy it next year. It's gonna ride really similar. We're always kind of being like, where's medium is
Yeah.
always kind of a moving target.
Fine
Right.
tuning. Yeah.
But generally on edge, that board's gonna feel
Great.
yeah.
the same as the other one you rode.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that because I listened to a lot of team riders for years for other brands, and like, I love that board. That was my go-to board. They changed it.
Yeah.
Now I have to find a board that I like to ride. And I was like, well, why do boards have to change? If it's a great board, it's a great board.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Keep it that way.
so we just,
It's not broken, don't fix it.
that's kind of my take on it.
Yep.
I don't know.
Right. And looking at this, your 7th collection, which is called the Kingdom Collection, the aesthetics of each board are vastly different than what they were like last year. For instance, the Haro, from what I hear, and you can get into like the story of, if you like to, the graphic. The top sheets are basically white. There's like a blue box with some text overlaid, like throughout the top of the deck. The base of the deck is kind of black on a horizon line, someone standing on it. Next set, the Odessa, that was the new one last year, right?
Yep.
Basically, black base. The top sheet is basically split in half, high contrast, black on the tail, and then kind of like shots with it looks like some fog of like trees and
So
things of that
from
sort.
the observatory above LA.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then the Honolulu, this is a real crowd pleaser, isn't it? Like contrasting top sheet, tail's white, and the top the nose is either kind of orange, green, or gray, and the bottom has like landscape photos. Like that's a big change from what it was last year, which reminded, I suppose, a lot of people of
Well, last
skate
year,
graphics.
yeah, last year was definitely very top.
Yep.
Rabbit did the graphics. Was
Yep.
Sin Eater collection was very heavily, I was like, well, let's just do skate graphics.
Right.
And so we did.
Yep.
And that was like another follow through, because when I concepted Interior Plane Project, I mean, Todd Bradbury was the first person that I ever imagined to do graphics, and he actually did the first splatter, the Interior Plane Project logo.
Right.
In that 2000 time,
Mhm.
2001 time. And so Todd was always like, I was always figured that Todd would be a part of the brand. And so finally 6 years in, like 6th collection, we followed through on that concept. And, it felt awesome to put that out. And then Cameron Strand is the guy who did the Kingdom collection visually. It's all his photos.
Okay.
And he did a lot of storyline. And then Joe Mertz is like the cat that comes and is he's kind of like my other half at IPP.
Okay.
Me and him kind of like run all the visuals. He does all the design, layouts.
Yeah.
He kind of, between me and him, we communicate with the artists and whatnot.
Got it.
He does some collections on his own at different times as we've kind of developed these collections. Collections come from I have 5 collections right now in my
Okay.
head, visually.
For
Oh,
5
yeah.
years out.
Yeah.
Oh
So it's
man.
like,
Got any sneak peeks?
and so it's like,
I tried.
I usually have different artists in mind and different these. The biggest thing with the collection is I always wanted to create little universes. So it's we create a moving picture, still picture. We create the art on the boards, and then that all creates this closed circuit.
Right. The
Oh.
Dark Meadows is my favorite one.
And a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was a great collection.
Well, and, I mean, you growing up in Alexandria, that probably resonates
Corn.
with you.
Yep.
This eerie sense of something amiss or evil that you don't necessarily see,
But
and,
feel it.
and No Promises was a big thing for me on the Dark Meadows collection as a statement, because I at the time felt like so many people feel like they're so deserving of stuff
Mm-hmm.
in, I guess, our culture.
Yeah.
And no promises was a statement, just to be like, look, this being a snowboarder doesn't promise you shit except snowboarding.
Right.
Yep.
And if it goes beyond that, you need to check yourself.
Right.
Because it's snowboarding first. If you aspire, as many kids do, and it's something that's special about skate and snowboard cultures, is that as a youthful participant, there are no barriers telling you that you cannot be pro or get to a level of the people that you look up to and aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ceiling that's like visible or tangible that says that you can't do that,
Right.
which is awesome.
Mhm.
And that's why we create so many lifestyle and culture-based people that skateboard that will never be pro, but they go to the park and skate,
Mhm.
which is awesome. Because the participation's awesome. And so in that, I kind of lost my train of thought, but
Well, no, it's like it's pretty cool too, because like Stephan and I, when we go out to shoot, we do like a lot of team shoots with the house, and
Yep.
sometimes Stephan does a lot of side projects, and we go to a lot of resorts in the Midwest. And Stephan, out of 1 out of 10 kids, like let's take Troll for instance, because we already talked about Troll.
Sure.
If you go to Troll, out of how many kids do you think are on IPP decks? 9?
At least.
It seems like it sometimes.
Yeah.
well, Troll's like I grew up at Troll.
Yeah.
Then again, there's a special relationship with
Right.
me and Trollhagen.
Right.
And like it really resonates in that Tanner's there a lot. Tanner has a very
Parkour.
strong relationship
Yep.
with
Yep.
Trollhagen.
Mhm.
I mean, we sponsor Mike Skiba, Kyle Kennedy. I mean, these guys are like, like these dudes are in the park every day. So then obviously those kids aspire to.
Yep.
You watch Kyle Kennedy or Mike Skiba snowboard, and you hope someday that you will snowboard to the
God,
a percentage of what those
Yeah.
guys can.
Yeah.
I wish I could dream. I wish I could fall asleep and dream that I was that good. Because I can't even fathom in real consciousness to even be as close to as good as Kiba or Kyle is. They are so fluid and so good at snowboarding.
But that's
It's incredible.
and that's what it's all about. Again, so like you have these kids aspiring, so you see that and they want to do that, they participate more and
Yeah.
they're having fun.
Yep.
But yeah, a big part of the interior is all the pilots.
Do you call them pilots instead of team riders? Or?
Yeah, just team riders just always, I get it. It's like basic. It's kind of like how it's always been, and so like to say anything different probably feels weird. But like team, I don't know. It just seems so spice to me. So I just felt like pilots. You're kind of piloting,
Yeah.
Part of the premium medium idea or ideal is that a snowboard is only as good as the person who's riding it or piloting it. So no matter what snowboard it is, look at like all the shit stick guys like Eric Louie and Ben McCabe. Those guys rip, and they're riding like these 90 timber planks Bergens that I grew up on.
Yep.
And they're ripping those in today's kind of like style and aesthetic.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's like, well, that board's not meant to be like, that doesn't have Edge Bite 6000 with like super hyper core. And but they're ripping. So So again, part of the premium medium ideal is just that like it's up to you to ride, and like how much you ride and how talented and or comfortable you are on a board is what makes the board under you be good or bad or otherwise. So for pilots, for me, it's more about the personalities of all these cats, and like, someone like a Jake Moore, who we call Snakes, or someone like Matt Boudreau, who we call Booty. Like, these are great people. Their lives extend beyond snowboarding. Snakes is right now is in pilot school. So like, these people have interests outside of snowboarding, but they happen to be very talented at snowboarding as well. But I think a lot of what leads to that talent and that perspective is these exterior forces that when they ride their snowboard, they're not just like looking at snowboarding only and then just regurgitating that. Which is what I see happening in snowboarding a lot now more than ever. Again, because we filter so tightly that we're just watching all the same snowboarding. And we're not allowing other snowboarding to influence us, or we're not looking at things like, we're not like interested in 8mm filming. We're not shooting film. Or we're not you know, taking our kids to different parks other than
Right.
International Falls.
Right.
You know, it's like there's so many different perspectives or opportunities to do different stuff that then contribute to then your style on a snowboard, your line, and your perspective on a snowboard.
Yep.
So, you know, as we like self-absorb our own snowboard culture, it gets really homogenized and bland.
Right.
And I see that happening a lot now, and it's like, I hope, you know, I just talked to a friend of mine in the Northwest about this yesterday in text messages, and it's like, if we can allow, like, the guys who split board, and the guys who just love powder at the resort, and the guys who only want to ride park, and the guys who only want to film street parts, to all kind of like be a part of the same culture instead of like boxing them and creating like separate storylines around them, snowboarding's gonna be so much more interesting and cool.
Right.
And like all those personalities are like,
Right.
they're great people doing
Right.
all those things,
Yeah.
but we need to tell all their stories, and we need to
Right.
like hear from them and like what fuels them or what drives them or
Yeah.
who are they. And I just don't feel like there's a lot of story right now. It's like a lot of like product, it's a lot of trick, it's a lot of spot, it's a lot of weird titles.
Yeah. Right.
And like that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And this is something we talked about prior to getting on here, is like participation matters.
Yep.
So can you go snowboarding? Do you snowboard? Is snowboarding a part of like your daily drive?
Right.
Not everybody can have that, but you know, that is like ground zero for my daily drive is snowboarding, the participation aspect.
Yep.
Can I snowboard?
Right.
Yeah.
That's ground zero. Everything revolves around that
Right.
concept, and it has since '86.
Yep.
I've done a lot of snowboarding, so I've been really lucky.
But you know,
right.
with those different segments of snowboard classifications, like the big mountain guy, you get the park kid, you get the
Yep.
dad,
Yep.
the young girl, you get like all these different people. I think a lot of that has to do with how brands are marketing their products, because people feel like they should be within a certain segment, not just overall riders. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can, like you said about like Louis and like the vintage snowboard trader guys, it's like you can take whatever board you want. It could be 20 years old and you can still ride it any kind of conditions there are today.
Yep.
2 years ago, I brought the only board I brought out to Copper was a 1993 Burton Air. It was a 161, stiff as the door that's on this room, and it's like it was kind of brutal to ride, but it was so much fun. And it kind of goes to show you don't necessarily need a board every single year
Because you had fun.
because you have fun on it.
Snowboarding.
Yeah.
Nice.
And-
Snowboarding as an action, as an
Yeah.
activity, is
Yeah.
a fun experience.
Right.
If you don't allow yourself to put all these layers of expectation to that experience and you just participate, it's so much more enjoyable.
Right.
So when you're like really hung up on like a lot of these different layers that you could potentially get hung up on, it really hinders that just going out.
Yep.
And snowboarding's something different for everybody, and it doesn't need to be the same thing for any of us.
Right.
You know, whatever it is, like if riding half the day and then shooting sick photos, like, and that's your passion, and that makes your snowboarding experience that much better. That's what that is for
That's,
you.
yep.
Right.
You know, and it's like if getting out for an hour in between work and all your responsibilities, and or riding at a demo for 35 minutes
Yep.
between turning screws,
Yeah.
that counts. That's
Yep.
awesome. That's
Yep.
part of your snowboard experience.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's just like, yeah, it doesn't have to, we self-create all these like weird hurdles for ourselves. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're fortunate to work in this industry, but like, I don't know that I snowboard any more than anybody else could if they wanted to make it
Got it.
that part of their life. Like I've built my life in and around of snowboarding, and skateboarding to some respect, but you know, the reality is that I still have to work to afford myself the time
Yep.
and to have to go snowboard, and it might be different than somebody else. Everybody's time is kind of appropriated differently through work or responsibility,
Yep.
whatever life is taking you on, whichever path. But you know, it's like someone who goes to school every day, snowboard every day too. Someone who works a 9 to 5, if you afford the opportunity, you can snowboard every day if it's part of what you want to do.
Yep.
Right.
It becomes a priority in your life.
If you want to do it, you can make it happen.
And I think at the end of the day, that's, you know, for me, it's like I just want to encourage snowboarding because I really love it, and I think it's awesome, and I think it's a great, activity for anybody.
Right.
Like definitely a great lifestyle to be a part of, and hopefully more and more cats like get on. Whether you're outside, whatever it is, you're outside doing, you know, fitting that kind of thing into your life. But
Right.
for me, it's snowboarding.
Mm-hmm. There's a guy I know who's a vintage snowboard trader. His name's Scott Kraken. I think he hasn't really been snowboarding for that long. Do you know Scott?
I know Scott.
Yeah, he rides Buck Hill. That's like his exercise.
Yep.
Like he chooses to, instead of going to the gym, he chooses to have fun on his snowboard. So on his way home from work, he goes to Buck for from 8 to 9 or something like that. And he has more days on snow than me. He has like 100 plus for sure.
Scott rules. And,
Yeah, Scott does
I started
rule.
riding with him a few years ago, and
Yeah.
he's just super fun to snowboard with.
Yeah.
He's a great person. You know, it's rad to know that somebody who's, you know, probably in his 40s when he started snowboarding,
Yep.
like is still out there. He was hitting jumps with me last season, well, 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
Yep.
Last season we didn't really have jumps. And it was like, yeah, I don't know. It was like that people like that fuel my drive for snowboarding because it was funny. This cat's like, you know, upper 40s, now 50s, and he's so hungry and passionate about snowboarding.
Yep.
And like just doing it and participating, and he's pushing himself and he's trying to learn new things and he's riding different, but he's really excited about just riding. And that's rad because snowboarding is, you know, again, at the end of the day, it's awesome just to go ride your board on like ice pack corduroy at Buck Hill at 8:30 at night
It's
after
tough.
after like all the ski racers have sloughed off the entire like man-made surface and it's just a sheet of ice. It's still awesome, you know, because it's still fun to participate. Is it as awesome as a powder day? Probably not, but like, you know, what are you gonna do? You know, you kind of take what you're given, and that's always been the thing about snowboarding is like you're given this opportunity and you take it. You know, you know, we kind of call it take your own line in IPP. We use that hashtag, and that's for me what it is. Is like just take your own line, ride whatever you got. Like it's like always been this like DIY kind of mentality because they didn't let you ride resorts when it started. I mean, are we a long ways from there? Yeah, we are. But at the same time, if we can't hold to like that mentality, you know, we just get into this like very homogenized box again, and it's kind of boring. And why does anyone want to do it?
Right. Now, what do you guys think we could do, like as an industry, to have people participate more? That's kind of a common theme that you've brought up as we've kind of talked through your past, your present, and you know, kind of moving into the future. Is like, we all kind of come from different backgrounds in snowboarding. You know, Pete, you've been here the longest out of all of us. Tanner, you're on the come up doing awesome things. Jenny, you're shooting photos you're my favorite photographer. You know, what do you think we can do to include more people? And is that starting people like just beginners? Like how do we do that? Anybody? Jenny, what do you think? Tanner, what do you think? Pete?
I guess it's kind of are you kind of going on a tangent of more being just like inclusive with everyone being snowboarding, like
getting
anyone who like goes, I want to snowboard, like well then you should
how does that happen?
Then you should grab their hand and take them with you. I absolutely think anyone who shows any kind of interest, whether they want to go one time or they want to go 10 times in a year or they want to go 100 days in a season, I think we should be entirely inclusive in trying to help them get on snow and make a positive influence. And I know there's kind of like before this we kind of dipped into like season passes. I know we kind of dipped into that thing. There is, and I know money's tough. Money's super tough. Like when I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't like. So when it came to me getting snowboard stuff, when I was a teenager, it was okay. You're gonna work in the summertime. You'll save up some dough, and then every single fall, I went to FL and bought a setup, or I came here and I bought a setup if FL didn't have anything that, you know, and most of the time we pull strings to make it work, but if we didn't, I came here. And so I guess it just comes down to like, it is tangible. It's definitely a thing that if I could do it at 14 years old and get us set up. I saved like $1,000 every summer, and then just like came in. I blew.
It's pretty good for a kid.
Well,
Nice.
I worked on like a farm. I like went and
Yeah.
helped out with that, and I literally like I blew the entire $1,000. Like I blew the whole thing, but which I
It's a
was
nice
smart as a kid. Yeah, but I bought like outerwear and boots and bindings, and
Right.
normally boots go a little bit, bindings can go a ways, boards
Yeah.
kind of didn't go very far.
Sure.
But I mean, just like as far as having that kind of like having the finances to do it, it's possible nowadays too. Especially like if you're a college student, like I know a lot of places do like $100 pass for college students.
Right.
If you buy a season pass prior to the season you're going to go ride, it's like half price. I think you can go Troll. I think Troll raised it to $250 instead of
Sure.
$200, but $250 in April of 2018, 2018-19 season.
Right.
You got a full season for $250.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It's
that's
incredible.
so then that kind of eliminates like how Pete mentioned earlier, like the guy who's like, I spent $80 on a ticket today. I gotta be here 8 hours. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. If you get a season pass, you can go for an hour. And if you
Right.
go, and then you kind of it makes it more tangible with the season passes. I know there's deals out there, and some of them get a little ridiculous. I know like there's some prices that are insane.
Over $50 to me around here is way too much.
I
think.
get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you got to keep the resorts have to keep the doors open, so it's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
gotta keep the
either
lights on.
bring up
yeah.
the prices of hot dogs or bring up the price of lift tickets. Just
But
Right.
Tanner's hitting
Yeah.
the nail on the head, and that's, season pass price. You might have to come out of pocket early,
right.
but you can get them at such a good rate.
Mhm.
Where if you take $250 and you rode 100 days,
Mhm.
Dude, worth.
I mean, that's
so
the thing.
worth it.
But it
Yeah.
also means that when you have a season pass, you can go to the resort. It can be a crappy night. You might not be excited. You force yourself to go. You wanted to. You got there. It wasn't awesome. If you bail, it ain't no skin off your back.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
like you tried, you went,
Yep.
say it was really bad conditions, whatever. You didn't feel it when you got there. You can roll out.
Yep.
You
can
know,
ride for an
you don't
hour.
have to stress about your $35, $50 packet or
Right.
ticket that you
Mhm.
purchased. You
Right.
just, and imagine that. So a $50 lift, $250, that's 5 times.
Right.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
bought the season pass, you rode 30 times,
Right.
no problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that allows everyone an opportunity to participate. And it
Right.
helps the resorts out too, because it gives them a little bit of money up front. They kind of go into the season with a budget. They know where they're kind of at.
Yep.
They know what kind of participation levels they
Yep.
might generally have, or can project out of that, because
Right.
they're going to do a lot of businesses coming through the buses and through the school system, so then they can kind of project that, and then everything else can be icing on top of the cake at some point.
Yep.
And we want the resorts to do well, because we want fun, good environments to actually participate in too.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess paying them some money to participate up their hill. I mean, they're taking all the risk on insurance.
Yep.
They've got to keep all the lifts and everything up to
Yep.
speed.
Yep.
A lot of these places are putting in new features all the time. That broken fence you rode by midwinter has got to get fixed somehow.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of things that that they have overhead too, and so but season pass is a great opportunity. Even locally, we have the Resort Association here in Minnesota
Yep.
did a 4th grade free season pass. So you got multiple days at all these different resorts,
Yeah.
Awesome.
which was free.
Yeah.
All you had to do was email them, and they gave your 4th grader a pass, and that's a great way
Yep.
to get new people, younger people in at a very cost-effective rate.
Right.
It doesn't have to be cumbersome. You can buy in secondary markets for affordable prices to try something to see if you like it. Not everyone's gonna like something. Not everybody has to,
Yep.
But to give somebody an opportunity to try it to see if they like it,
Right.
that's awesome. And so
Right.
we have more in 2018.
Mhm.
We have more opportunities for you to be able to afford to get
Mhm.
into snowboarding than
Right.
any other point. Any
In
other
snowboarding.
point in snowboarding.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I think it should be like I think everyone within snowboarding should kind of take it upon themselves to like contact a friend who maybe has kids or a family member who has kids and just say, I want to take you guys snowboarding. Let's go ride, or I challenge you to like go out and just get a lesson for a little bit, just to encourage people to just try, because
Well, and here's the other thing to the end of that end. Why not just do it in your backyard?
why not just do it in your backyard?
Why
That's a
does it have?
perfect
Why
idea.
do we have to go to the resort?
That's where I first kind of
with-
stood on a deck.
That's where I did too.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
It was all. Pastures in
Right.
Wisconsin.
Yep.
I was
Right.
riding off cornices of you know, cow pastures. Like, you know, you hit a
Golf courses.
you hit a cow patio, it was just a jump. Like, you know, it was like, but go to your backyard with your kids if they're little and throw them on a board. Go sledding, you know. Again, my mom took me sledding a lot as a kid, and that really developed my love for being in the snow and playing in the snow. And it's really about, you know, the other thing about that is like, I always embrace the seasons, you know. It's like all the seasons we have here in the Midwest. I know, you know, sorry SoCal. I guess you're hyped on it. You just have like 70 degrees all the time, give or take some fog. And so then the temperature goes up and down, which is great. And if that's what you like, I love the seasons. I love fall and spring. I love winter. You know, summer is probably my least favorite. I'm sweating right now. You know, it's like
it's hot here too.
But right now, I think the heat index right now, as we talk about snowboarding, is 100 plus outside. Like it's like I think that if you went outside right now, you'd just be swimming in soup. But I like it, you know. It's like seasons are awesome, but winter season, embrace it. Go sledding with your kids. You know, put them on a snowboard, stand them sideways. At the local sledding hill, see if they like it. Maybe they don't. You know, maybe they'll like it later. But affording them an opportunity. Yes, you can go get lessons. I get that. I think that's encouraged. For younger folks and maybe for like girlfriends and or boyfriends or significant other, whichever way you go, and like that way it's like you don't want to teach that person yourself necessarily.
That's sage advice.
I've been there. It's just,
don't do it.
But that being stated, have your kids go out, get lessons, kind of get the basics down. I feel like snowboarding takes a little few sessions to figure out the balance. It's like riding a bike. Once you learn how to balance on these small edges, and sit back on your seat, keep your hips loose, keep your knees loose, turn with your head and not your legs. Once you kind of get these basics down, you can kind of go from there and go anywhere. So you don't need to invest in some 16-year program of snowboard instruction, but a couple lessons to get some basics down, to get you kind of a foundation, which you can go out from there
then go
improve at your own pace once you get that balance down, really. So, but I think that's, I don't know. I see, and I would say this. I would say that personally, because I spend majority of the days at the resort in the winter, I've seen so many young folks participating on snow in the last few years. I definitely think there's a generation of my age cats, your age, your dad, dirty 30 soon, we're kind of because we've grown up in the culture, we're kind of expressing that to our youth and to our kids and saying hey, these are great opportunities, you should do this. It's a really fun thing to do. And I see a lot of VST cats and on message boards bringing their kids out, and they're so proud and stoked. That's really awesome, and I think that's great. My big thing is I always never want to push it too hard, because I found my own passion in life, and I always would want my kids, or I want kids in general, to be able to be afforded the opportunity to find their own passions versus projecting my onto.
And hopefully technology doesn't get too much in the way of kids sparking an interest into snowboarding, because every kid can just look at their phone for days now and that's it.
But that's it. That's why I'm saying playing in the snow, making snowmen, snowball fights, these basic foundational moments in childhood. The more you can encourage those moments, and and then what's great after that? Hot chocolate, hot cider right after that, and that encourages these great memories. And then now I think of winter, and I think of these fun things I did, and I want to go out in winter and participate versus sit inside and stare at boxes somewhere. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's got a different lifestyle.
Absolutely.
End goal, but that's kind of the way I look at it.
No. So again, as we part through this, what's some of the best advice the best advice you've ever received? And that's that's a big question. You could apply it to snowboarding. You could apply it to life. Not necessarily what advice you have for other people, but the best advice that you have ever received from someone else.
Think critically.
Think critically. And how have you applied that well to your life? Why has that worked?
Well, again, because at the end of the day, I mean, it goes back to what we've already kind of touched on a bunch, is perspective, the way you treat people,
Yeah.
to question things,
Yeah.
specifically in today's culture. I mean, I feel like so many of us are unquestioning of so much.
Yeah.
We're so accepting because we see it somewhere. It's like, oh, that's true. So you got to think critically. You got to like look at different perspectives. You got to look at things outside your own point of view. That's going to offer you a broader perspective, which will give you a better understanding and or a better point of view, and allow you to decide, you know, if something's correct, if you could do something better. You know, all those different variables in life. It's just going to help you navigate those. So thinking critically is just something that I remember as a part of my mom's life when I was younger. And I think I have a note message still I found somewhere. It was like one of the top things. It was like a bunch of different little things,
Right.
but that was the first thing.
Think critically.
Think critically.
Cool.
It's like,
That's good advice.
Good one.
Awesome. Pete, thank you so much.